New Muslims from America and Other Lands by Imtiaz Ahmad Madni. Chapter 2.2 Dr. Fatima Bindu, a Hindu lady doctor's journey to Islam. Dr. Fatima said, I was born in Delhi in 1973 in a Rajput Hindu family. Our family was a typical Rajput family. They cherish the age-old Hindu religious values and practices. Hindu religion strictly and sincerely is followed by my whole family. Daily idol worship in the home is the cornerstone of their practice. They do not allow their daughters to mix with boys freely and loosely. When I was about 6 years old, I used to visit my grandmother in a town called Muzaffarnagar in UP province of India. This area is dominated by Muslim population. I used to hear call for Salat or Azan from the nearby masjid. I loved Azan so much so that I used to repeat the wording after the muazzin or caller of the Azan. My grandmother was upset to hear me repeating Azan loudly. She told me again and again to be quiet. I, however, could not resist repeating the Azan as and when I heard it. This proves that every innocent child is born Muslim, is by birth is Muslim. It is the parents and our environment which make a child Hindu, Christian, or a Jew. College education. College life brings lot of unseen freedom and open-mindedness. I finished 2 years of college with good merit. During the third year of college, there was a students' riot countrywide due to Mandel Commission, which reserved some seats for the minorities in the colleges. Colleges were closed due to these riots. Students has nothing to do except engage in fashion and hang in cafes with their friends. I visited Russian Cultural Center in Delhi and was sitting with a few Kashmiri students in the cafe. One of them was Shakil. I told them bluntly, you are not patriots and Islam is not a good religion. One Kashmiri student gave me an English translation of Quran next day. After 1 week, he gave me a book about the life story of the Prophet ﷺ. I did not care to read these books. I just threw them in the cupboard. One day, there was nothing to do. My grandmother told me to press her legs. It was a very boring activity for me. I thought it was better to open a book and read it while pressing her legs in order to minimize my boredom. I started reading about the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. I found that an old lady used to throw stinking garbage on Prophet Muhammad ﷺ from the roof whenever he passed her home due to her hatred for the Prophet ﷺ. One day when the Prophet ﷺ, was passing near our house, he did not find this lady with garbage. He ﷺ, waited for her for a short while. Then he inquired about her from the people. They said she is very ill. The Prophet ﷺ knocked at her door. She came to the door and said, have you come to take revenge from me? He said, not at all. I just learned that you have fallen ill, so I came to look after you. She was so much impressed by the character of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, she immediately embraced Islam. I read this story to my grandmother. She said, he must be a very good person. You have indeed read a good story. No, I was always keen to read more stories every day. I read many stories and then placed the book back in the closet and ignored it for a while. As teenager, I got involved in more and more fashion activities. Due to ego problem, I still upheld that Muslims are dirty and they are bad people. I hated them deep from my heart. Due to my good merit in college, I was selected as an exchange student to study in a medical college in Moscow, Russia. I did preparatory courses in biology, physics, and chemistry in Russian language for 1 year in Moscow. We were 7 Indian girls students there. I found Russian cultural values somewhat mixed up. I found them very honest, straightforward, and hospitable, and they loved to give a great helping hand to others. For example, a Russian individual will teach you Russian language for adjustment there without any charges. However, the moral values were zero. For example, a girl could bring her boyfriend even in her parents' house. In the hostel, I interacted with students of other cultures and religion. On my floor, there were some Arab students. I was impressed by their cultural values. As a result of this, I developed some affinity or attraction towards Islam. In the meanwhile, I received an English translation of Quran and some Dawa books from Muhammad Shakil, who happened to be in Tashkent under the student exchange program. I met Shakil long time ago in Russian Cultural Center Cafe in Delhi with other Kashmiri students. He also gave me dawa on phone time to time. By the way, my mother had put all the Hindu religious books in my luggage. Now I had the Hindu religious books open on my table along with an open copy of Quran. I used to read all of them daily. Whenever I read Quran, I cried without break. That means Imtiaz Ahmad, I asked the writer of this story, asked the lady doctor, what made you cry? She said, when I read statements in Quran like, you will be thrown in hell fire and you will be the fuel of the hellfire. I could not help crying bitterly. It affected my heart and soul. A funny accident. One day I was coming from college to my hostel after attending a function in the campus. I was dressed in beautiful Indian clothes. I had my colorful bangles and wore feminist Punjabi shoes. An old lady was sitting on the sidewalk with her cat. She called me and held my hand. She said, you are so very pretty. I love Indian clothes and people. I'm fan of movie stars in Indian movies. Why don't you live with me? I am all alone. I refused, stating that my studies may suffer. She insisted to take a cup of coffee with her. I visited her house. This old Jewish lady owned the house and was living all alone. She was very hospitable and courteous. In due course of time, I changed my mind and moved in her house because of too much disruptions in studies by the weekend parties, music, dancing in the hostel. I wanted to concentrate on my studies. My Hindu religious book and Quran were always lying open on my desk, on my study desk. I used to read all of them daily. My landlady said to me, whenever you read this book, that means Quran, you cry a lot. You should not read it since it makes you cry daily. I met Shkil in Cafe of Russia Cultural Center. We both were tall and attractive. We developed mutual fascination for each other. We remained in touch with each other. Shakil came to Tashkent under Indian student exchange program. He used to call me from there and gave me some information about Islam. During my third year of MBBS course, I traveled to Tashkent to visit him. Tashkent is 6 hours flight from Moscow. I traveled by train with a Russian girlfriend. It took us 3 days to reach Tashkent. Shkil made Shkil asked me to marry him. I refused, stating that I cannot leave my Hindu religion. I told Shkil I wanted to practice both religion, Hinduism and Islam simultaneously. Shkil agreed, and I wanted me, and he wanted to marry him there and then. Shkil did not force me to become a Muslim. He left the option open. Marriage ceremony. We approached Imam of Tashkent Masjid to conduct legal marriage for me and Shkil. He refused to conduct marriage for a Hindu lady and a Muslim young man. Shkil informed me that I must recite Islamic pledge in order to let this marriage take place. I agreed. We approached an imam of a smaller masjid in Tashkent. The imam asked me to recite the Islamic pledge. There is no God worth worship except Allah, and Muhammad is his obedient servant and his messenger. I already knew this pledge even in Arabic without knowing the meaning. In this way, I embraced Islam in this masjid in the presence of several dozen international students. Marriage agreement. The Imam was very simple, pious, and an inspiring person. He started saying to me, "Oh, young lady, you are now our sister in Islam. You have just made this pledge that you will worship only and only one God. You must not worship any idol at any time. Not only everybody is in this masjid pleased by your wise declaration, but an Eid is being celebrated in heavens for your wonderful choice. In this Eid party, angels are saying to each other, here is a diseducated young lady who has made the most important choice of her life. You are being mentioned all over the heavens." Imam's speech really touched my heart, and this was the first time when my heart truly melted for Islam. When Lady Doctor was relating this event to the writer of this story, Imtiaz Ahmad, she was crying and was recalling those precious moments of her life. She felt this was the turning point of her life. Imam said to Shakil, before making a marriage agreement, you have to agree to give her a monetary gift called Mahr. Shakil said, I'm a student. I have only $200. Imam said, it is not enough. Shakil agreed to borrow from some friends and increase the amount. Imam said, it is not enough. She is a lady doctor. You should pay according to her status in the society. Shakil agreed to borrow from his relatives and made the amount several $1,000s. I was amazed to see how Islam protected the rights of a woman. It increased my appreciation for Islam. Shakil said to the Imam, please write this amount of Mahr in the marriage contract. I promise to pay her. Imam said, we need not write this. Allah is listening to whatever we are saying. Allah is the best witness. This further increases my level of Iman, and it infused more spirituality in me. Finally, the marriage contract was made, and everybody in the masjid was joyful and in high spirits. I returned to Moscow with my Russian girlfriend. Islamic education. Brother Abdullah Sani The Imam of the student masjid in Moscow was very knowledgeable, pious, and sincere Muslim. He, he imparted lot of education to men and women. He used to answer our questions and removed our doubts very cleverly. Everybody respected and loved him. I have not seen any person more pious than him in my life. My Islamic growth was fast and firm because of spiritual environment provided in this masjid. In the meanwhile, my husband finished his degree in engineering in Tashkent and he joined me in Moscow. We moved to married students housing facility. Luckily, my husband found a job in Nature Company of Britain in Moscow. I called my reaction of my parents. I called my mother and informed her about my change of religion and marriage. She said, "Someone has done magic to you. You are totally out of your mind." She threatened to get both of us killed even if we go to America or Australia. My mom added, "You have made a terrible mistake of your life. It is better for you to commit suicide by throwing yourself in front of a moving train in your city. In this way, my honor will be saved. I shall inform my relatives that my daughter has died. Last but not the least, never ever show me your face." I was extremely stressed by this and had bad dreams. It also affected my studies. Legal difficulties. Someone said engagement is okay, but marriage is a headache. We went to Indian embassy to make our marriage legal by Indian laws. They flatly refused. One person guided us that if we have a child born in Russia, then Indian embassy will not refuse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us our first child in Moscow. We registered our child according to Russian laws. Now the Russian government wrote to Indian embassy. This marriage and childbirth has taken place in accordance with the Russian laws. Hence, Indian embassy cannot deny these two facts. After lot of run around, Indian embassy was forced to issue visa to both of us and our child, and our marriage was made legal in the sight of Indian laws. I finished my MBBS degree and we returned home to serve our beloved country and people. The first instruction given to the Prophet Muhammad was Anzir Ashiratik al Akrabin, that means warn or remind your near dear relatives. In fact, Allah has given this same instruction to all the prophets. There is a lot of wisdom in it. Relatives know your character and sincerity. It is relatively easier to preach them. According to this Quranic injunction, I tried to improve the Islamic behavior of my husband. He became more committed in offering his salat in the congregation. In Moscow, our next door neighbor had very good recitation of Quran. He recited Quran every morning loudly. We could overhear it. I reminded and requested my husband to recite Quran every morning like our neighbor. My husband's Islamic practice increased in quality and quantity by grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we moved to India, my in-laws were leading a very affluent life. They were, however, careless in Islamic practices. So much so that some of them indulged in non-permissible activities like drinking alcohol. I found that most of the affluent Muslim families around us were like this. They followed un-Islamic lifestyle for a long period and had become used to of it. They had even no feeling for this great loss. As poet Hali said, वाय नाकामी मताए कारवां जाता रहा, कारवां के दिल से एहसास से ज़िया जाता रहा. वाय नाकामी मताए कारवां जाता रहा, कारवां के दिल से एहसास से ज़िया जाता रहा. Alas, what a destruction of a community Even the most precious belonging of the community is gone, so much so that even the feeling of this big loss is lost from their conscience. I boldly and firmly reminded them all. Habits take long time to change. I did not lose heart in my efforts. With my good merits, I found medical internship easily and my husband found a job too. I saved money from my salary and arranged Hajj for both of us and my mother-in-law. Thanks God, I was able to pay for all these expenses from my savings. As we returned home from Hajj, we brought with us some Zamzam water, sacred water from Makkah, Saudi Arabia. One of my near relatives requested for Zamzam. I told him that I shall give you Zamzam only if you promise to stop consuming alcohol anymore. He promised so, and I served him Zamzam. My husband told me after 3 days, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your sincere preachings, our near dear relatives have absolutely stopped drinking alcohol. I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this help. I am the only one who wear hijab or Islamic veil for women in the family. Many born and traditional Muslim families have melted into Hindu society and got used to of their that generation after generation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept my small contribution to this family, which has become more and more God-fearing day after day. I was selected and assigned by Government of India to serve as a physician for the pilgrims of Makkah Mukarramah during the Hajj of 2009. I was posted in Makkah for about 2 months. I was very thrilled to serve Muslim Ummah in Makkah, in Mina and Arafat. I performed additional Hajj and Umrah as well. I had also opportunity to meet many practicing Muslims and a few scholars. I am grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing me this unique opportunity. I would like to do the same if Indian government select me for this duty during my Hajj next year. Last but not least, during the Hajj, we were presented several books of Brother Imtiaz Ahmad. My husband was sitting in Masjid Nabawi Sharif and reading these books hour after hour. One Nigerian brother asked my husband, "Can I see one of these books which you are reading so attentively?" After reading part of this book, he said to my husband, "Please give this book to me. All my family will pray for you." My husband gave one book to him and brought the other books with him to India. In my home, one of my children read these books aloud while rest of the family listen to him. All of us cry when we hear stories of new Muslims. We also share these books with other traditional and new Muslims. The performance of Dr. Fatima was so good during her assignment in Makkah for Hajj that she was selected again next year. And she was given an award for it. In year 2011, she was appointed again as director for the medical facilities for Indian Hajj in Medina. It consisted of a major hospital and 6 medical clinics in Medina Munawwara. Hospital and clinics have about 2,000 people working round the clock. Indian government does very good job to look after the Hajj by sending highly experienced and devoted staff every year. Dr. Fatima Bindu is the first lady doctor who had the honor to be the director of Indian medical facility in Medina Munawwara during Hajj. I was thrilled to see that she conducted Islamic education to the women group of her medical staff every night throughout her stay in Medina Munawwara. This was the unique way of thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing her to this sacred city. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward her immensely for her all services to Muslim Ummah. Ameen. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم.